Taskforce update, if we could have our Mayoral Flooding Taskforce to the table, please. I need this though to speak. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Right. Yes, please. Oh, okay. Oh, because they haven't. Okay. While you're putting the presentation together, Mike, I would like to take the opportunity to thank you and members of the task force who have really worked night and day to put together a series of proposals that are going to really see hundreds of people benefit from the decisions that we make today. And so I know that people will be very pleased that the effort was put in to try and make this happen. There are a number of decisions that we've got before us, and I know that some of the additional significant decisions that have got to be made, we are now really set up to deliver. The other thing that I wanted to do, and it was just taking advantage of the delay in getting the presentation set up, was just to advise councillors that I took action last week, which some of you will be aware of, and which I will come back to council next week and ask for your retrospective approval for undertaking. And that is that we have been successful with our application to the High Court to join the proceedings that EQC and the Insurance Council are taking with respect to the declaratory judgment on flooding issues as they relate to land. The question that we obviously have an enormous interest in is what happens with the increased flooding vulnerability to floor levels. And with the increased vulnerability to floor levels, obviously being impacted in the areas that we're going to be talking about today, it seemed to me that it was really important that the council sought that level of clarity around that particular issue at the same time that the court was looking at the land levels. And so I think that that's a hugely positive thing to be able to announce. The other thing is that, and the reason for having to come next week for retrospective approval is that I advised advised EQC that we had an interest potentially in making application. Their lawyer did advise the court that we were interested and that we might be looking to apply to join the proceedings. And as a result, the court gave us until the 30th of May to apply to join the proceedings if we wanted to do so. So I had to take action urgently, so it's not so much that I would normally act without taking advice from colleagues first, but I felt that it was so important that we put our stake in the ground, as it were, that we proceeded down that track. So we've advised all parties, obviously the Insurance Council and the government as well. So over to you, Mike. I'll let you take over from here.
Thank you, and thank you I'll pass your comments on to the team. The report today around progress really focuses on what we've achieved over the last fortnight since we reported to you. I'd like to take you through the executive summary and the report, and perhaps in question time more detail can be fleshed out of the body of the report. The presentation that I've got up here on the screen really relates more to the second item on the agenda, so we'll go through that later. Just recapping, the task force was set up to look for or recommend potential short-term solutions to the regular flooding worsened by the damage from the earthquakes, and we've delivered our report on that on the 12th of May. Since we've done that, and we've established a set of criteria around finding out who were the most vulnerable people in our community. Since we've done that, we've had over 330 incoming calls to our call centre. We've taken 308 of those people, a significant amount of those people, through a script to understand where they fit within that criteria. 214 of those we already knew about, and we're now working through a very comprehensive validation process to understand more about these people, more about the risks associated with the flooding for them, and that's going to probably occupy a significant amount of our time over the next few weeks. We've had a series of public meetings. We have had 5 to date. The report says 4. We had another one last night. We will be having another meeting tonight in South Shore and New Brighton, and meetings next week in Lower Raven and Heathcote Valley. Those meetings are incredibly valuable. They're very useful for us to understand more about the risk, understand more where the issues are lying for us as a community, and we are continuing to get about 50, sometimes up to 50 calls a day into the call centre relating to follow-ups from those meetings. One of the features of the Phase 1 report was to design local area schemes that would provide temporary flood defences. We identified 16 local area schemes and 7 maintenance activity areas. We looked at Little River earlier in the task force. Little River really has come out of scope in terms of the effects of flooding in that area not being related to the earthquakes. The previous meeting of the council, when we presented the report, we talked about Littleton. We met residents from Littleton last night. The key thing about Littleton is it's got a unique set of circumstances. It needs a separate look at it, and we'll be looking at that in more depth starting from next week. So that was a specific resolution of the council. We identified a number of maintenance items that were needed to be done immediately. Those have either been done or they are progressing. The best example of that is the work or examples of that would be the work in the Upper and Lower Heathcote, but more particularly the Lower Dudley. A significant amount of channel widening, deepening and removing of obstructions, which will provide some significant benefit to the ability of that channel to carry flood flows. We've also been working very closely with SERA, EQC and CDHB and understanding those other issues, particularly around cost sharing, some policy work and data sharing with EQC and the Health Board in respect to the issues relating to wastewater contamination overflows. We are working, continuing work, and wastewater overflows have been a significant feature of all our public meetings and a serious cause of concern. There's overlap with a number of existing council projects, and in particular the work that Skirt's doing, and on the 6th of June, which is tomorrow, we're working with senior colleagues and stakeholders to start fleshing out some of those issues. So that really is a work in progress around the wastewater contamination issue. We've identified that there's still a significant amount of costs associated with temporary flood defences, $16 million worth of CapEx and about 1.5 million OpEx. As a council officer, I'm still cautious about recommending and committing or asking the organisation to commit to that expenditure just yet. A lot of it still needs to be validated, particularly given that we're still getting a lot of calls. We need to do a lot of work operationalising some of these schemes and running them through some fairly rigorous challenge sessions with our colleagues in the capital program and the operational space. So that will be ongoing work for us as part of the task force. We've identified a number of issues, need to understand the organisation's ability to deliver these and just exactly where they fit. And so that's going to occupy the next couple of weeks. Going through to the recommendations, we've looked at house defence as a viable option for some people or for some households. We've worked with Sarah and suppliers to identify where we might do some trials and some testing of the materials, and also to gauge the public acceptance of that. So at this stage we're working with Sarah. We've identified a property in the red zone. We've got a supplier who is going to provide the labour and actually do the work for us for nothing. We'll be looking to spend money on the consumables to do that, and that's in the order of $10,000 to $15,000. We haven't still quite landed the exact house. A number are just currently being assessed, but we'll be looking for a recommendation to proceed with that work, to just really provide proof of concept to make sure that these tools will actually work in the context of our dwellings and the way they're built. The funding is a serious issue for us, obviously, and we've looked at the financial implications of any of these schemes. We have a land drainage or a stormwater and freshwater infrastructure repair budget. That's $29.4 million over 7 years, and that is available for this kind of work if decisions are made to proceed with this work. There's also the Building and Infrastructure Improvement Borrowing Allowance that can also be used for this work if that was considered appropriate. I've talked about the high-level costs, the 16 million capex and the 1.5 million opex. The other costs that are associated with this task force are actually the cost of running the task force. At this stage, the predicted costs for this phase will be around $830,000. That's a team of up to, at times, about 26 people, but it equates to around about 18 full-time equivalents that have been working over the last few weeks on this. So there is a recommendation in there to retrospectively approve that budget, to apply that to the Stormwater Temporary Works Program, part of the Council Horizontal Infrastructure Rebuild Program. That's colloquially known as the Stormwater EQ OPEX budget. And the final recommendation was to continue, to instruct the task force really to continue looking at the vulnerability levels, confirming the identity and locality of the vulnerability levels, and confirm back to you the earlier resolutions of the council around some of these local area schemes. So that's the thrust of the progress report. I'll now hand it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, look, I'll move the recommendation, and Phil Clearwater will second it. I guess that you've got a presentation on the next item on the agenda, yes. And I just wonder, given the significance of the Tay Street pump and where it takes us, I just wonder whether you'd like to make that presentation now. I mean, technically, I suppose we could deal with both papers at the same time, because sure. It seems to me that somebody looking at this would say, well, we haven't made, as much progress as we might have liked, but actually the reverse is true, because with this proposal, we get to a point where we can protect hundreds of people from the flood risk that they're exposed to at the moment in a normal, storm event, and but it is part of both a temporary and a long-term solution, whatever the long-term solution is. And I, like you, do not want to be sitting here making decisions about $50 million projects if I don't know that that is good value for the city as a whole, because somebody's got to pay. And I think that there's more than one source of contribution for that. alternative is the better way to go.
Yep.
So if you would like to talk about the Tay Street pump and what that would do and the position that would leave us in, I think that would be a much more useful basis for us to have a debate around the actual Flood Taskforce report.
Yep, more than happy. So I'll probably, if you all got the Tay Street and Flockton Drain pump station report, so that's probably, we'll go through both at the same time. The first thing that I'll start with is around community needs and confidence, and we're, as designers and or leading a team of engineers and designers, we've looked to focus around community needs, and it comes down to us to a question of confidence to address in the short term the needs of the owners and residents of the most damaged and vulnerable dwellings, and really to remove the regular flooding from under houses. Now this is really synthesises the initial brief that we were working under for the task force. And we looked at the Tay Street pump station drain in the context of that in terms of the short-term needs and removing regular flooding. And that when we're making a decision on Tay Street drain, it really is those short-term needs, regular flooding issues. I'll say right now that this option does not remove the flood risk entirely. We still need to look for a long-term management solution for flood risk to re-establish a fully functional, sustainable and strong residential commercial area, as well as a residential area. So going through the report, this option is in fact a third option which arose as part of the task force investigation into flooding in the Flockton area. It delivers partial relief to the more regular flooding in this area and is based on a pumping station in the Tay Street drain area to reduce flooding in the Flockton basin. This option is not a complete solution to flood risk. Although it will provide significant relief, it should be considered as early implementation of a permanent solution that will integrate with two earlier options presented in March this year. It is driven by earlier resolutions from the Council a few weeks ago. So it provides meaningful flood reduction in the Dudley area. The scheme is located within within Philpotts Road and Kensington Avenue by the Mayoral Public Library, with a pump station located in Patrick Street at the back of the library. The pump station will go up Kensington Avenue and Philpotts Road to where it intersects with the Dudley diversion. It removes about 2 cubic metres a second of water out of what we call the Tay Street drain catchment, and sends that north into the upper Dudley diversion. There is capacity in this diversion by controlling the operational parameters or procedures of a pump station that regulates the storage in Cranford Basin. So we've got room in the Cranford Basin and room in the diversion to store 2 cubic metres a second of water in the more frequent rainfall events. It's important to understand some of the benefits, and I'm going to go through the presentation, then I'm going to take you through some of the risks and issues in the report. But just graphically, you can see up there some outputs of the modelling and the investigation that we've carried out that explain where the benefits and where this scheme benefits, where it doesn't benefit, and where it benefits some but there's still risks. So we can see in the upper catchment around the Tay Street drain area, which is a very, very flat, I haven't got my cursor, but that's not, those of you that are familiar, I haven't got a pointer, no. Those of you that are familiar with Tay Street drain and Mayoral Public Library, it's a very flat area, very little grade, has a very limited amount of pipework. And you're seeing in the purple area at the top of your screen there an area of no benefit. That's because that drain will still at times overtop and cause shallow surface flooding. But significantly, there is a significant amount of area benefited within Flockton Basin. It drops water levels throughout the area, but this yellow areas are where there is flooding is by and large generally removed. And in the blue areas there, the water levels are lowered to the extent that there's a significant improvement in the risk to floor levels. So I'll just before I go through the report, the numbers to bear in mind, and I'll restate that this is a good solution. It reduces flooding in the more frequent events. It benefits 129 properties in terms of removing the flood risk quite significantly. There's still 214 properties with reduced flooding, but that is still under the house. There's 11 floor levels in the catchment still at risk of flooding during heavy rain. So that's an improvement of around 19 floor levels at risk. What it tells us is that we've still got vulnerable people in this catchment, even though we've got this solution in place, but it is a significant improvement in their circumstance.
4.5 million expenditure for just a few floor levels. They're actually not looking at the total picture, and nor are they looking at the long term. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, that's right.
So the huge benefit of investing the $4.5 million now is that not only do we get this immediate benefit, but we actually get part of our long-term solution in place.
Absolutely. This was an option, and I'll just dial back a bit to November 2013. We looked at this. This was sort of one of a suite of options. I think it was around 14 options that we looked at altogether. And one of them was actually beheading the catchment and sending it north up into Cranford Basin. The reason we didn't pursue this as one of our long-term options was that it didn't totally solve the flooding. It doesn't totally solve the flooding or the risk for this catchment. But putting this in the mix now with the other longer-term options allows us to relook at those options, look at the value engineering associated with that design, and incorporate these two. Incorporate this as something that will add a significant amount of benefit and should reduce the costs of those other two options. So yes, it does provide us with benefits, absolutely. Not only to Flockton, but it also provides us with benefits to that Tay Street drain catchment, which is still difficult to drain.